Hello, this is a special Newsmakers edition of Aviation News Talk, where we talk with people who are making the news. The very first sale of G100UL Unleaded fuel occurred on Wednesday at the Reid-Hillview Airport in California, and special incentives are in place for local pilots who register today, Friday, for up to 25 gallons of free fuel tomorrow, Saturday, when they fly to the Reid-Hillview Airport. Eric Peterson, director of Santa Clara County Airports, tells us about this one-time incentive program to jumpstart the sales of G100UL, and he talks about what your local airport manager needs to do to get G100UL at your airport. Hello again, and welcome to Aviation News Talk, where we talk in general aviation. I'm Max Trescott. I've been flying for 50 years. I'm the author of several books and the 2008 National Flight Instructor of the Year, and my mission is to help you become the safest possible pilot. Last week in episode 353, we had a somewhat controversial show in which I answered a listener letter about dealing with system failures in flight and how to choose an airport to land. And I'll talk more about that show next week. But in the meantime, if you didn't hear that episode, you may want to check it out at aviationnewstalk.com/353. And if you're new to the show, hey, we're glad you found us. And if you would take a moment right now in whatever app that you're listening to us in and touch either the subscribe key, or if you're in the Spotify or Apple podcast app, the follow key, so that next week's episode is downloaded for free. And this is a listener-supported show. If you're enjoying the show, when you get a moment, go out to our support page at aviationnewstalk.com/support, where you'll find links to support the show via PayPal, Venmo, Zelle, and Patreon. And when you make a donation, I'll read your name on the show. Now let's dive into the show. First, if you're in the San Francisco Bay Area and you want to take advantage of the free incentives mentioned in this show, time is of the essence. As our guest Eric Peterson explains, you must register no later than midnight tonight, Friday, in order to get the incentives mentioned tomorrow on Saturday. And you'll find links with all the details in our show notes at aviationnewstalk.com/354. And if you're unfamiliar with G100UL, please go to aviationnewstalk.com/222 to hear our interview in 2022 with George Brawley, the inventor of this unleaded avgas. As GAMI has stated, G100UL high-octane avgas has been approved by the FAA for use in all spark ignition piston engines and airplanes in the FAA Type Certificate database. By FAA regulation, certified aircraft may legally use G100UL avgas with the associated STCs for the engine and the airframe. So, as I understand, any certified piston airplane can now use this fuel. It's not currently approved for helicopters, but that's expected to happen sometime in the future. Now let me tell you a little about Eric Peterson. He's the director of Santa Clara County Airports, which includes Reid-Hillview and San Martin. He started working at the county 26 years ago after graduating from San Jose State University's aviation program. He's a board member for the Aero Club of Northern California and an active pilot who flies an A36 Bonanza. And now here's our conversation with Eric Peterson. Eric, welcome to the show. I am so excited to have you here today.
Well, thanks, Max. It's great to be here.
We've known each other for a long time, but man, you've got some just amazing news here. Let's get to it immediately. What happened earlier this week at the Reid-Hillview Airport in San Jose, California?
Well, after a great deal of effort, G100UL GAMI's 100-octane unleaded avgas arrived at the airport on Monday afternoon. We took a load of about 7,500 gallons of it and are ready to start selling it. It's very exciting.
That's great. Now, my understanding is the first sales already happened?
That's correct. Our first and second sales were yesterday. We got the fuel. We had to load it into the truck. The truck had to settle. So Wednesday was the first day of sales.
That's fantastic. Well, I understand you've got a big event coming up this weekend to help promote this. Tell us about that.
Well, GAMI is offering an incentive for people to get their STC. The typical STC is priced, according to the GAMI website, it's priced at about the cost of a tank of gas for the airplane. What they're doing right now for Reid-Hillview and San Martin-based aircraft is to give that STC away. To do so, you have to follow the instructions, which are found on the county airport's website. And you have to email GAMI. You have to buy the STC from GAMI. And then GAMI will take a list of based aircraft that we have, and they will reverse the charges on those aircraft that are based here. Now, if you've already bought the STC, GAMI is offering 50 gallons of G100UL free of charge. And if you're in one of the other Bay Area airports and you buy the STC by midnight on November 1st, then GAMI is offering 25 gallons of free G100UL if you fly into Reid-Hillview on Saturday, November 2nd.
Okay. So we've got three separate offers here. Let's kind of break down each one of them a little bit. Let's start with the free STC for Reid-Hillview and San Martin-based aircraft. Now, that's time limited, I'm guessing. Does that free STC only apply to people who do the three things that they need to do, including showing up this Saturday?
That is correct. You have to participate in that, you have to buy the STC on GAMI's website by midnight on Friday, November 1st. And then they will reverse the charges afterwards.
Got it. All right. So three things. You've got to send an email in advance to krhv@g100ul.com. Then you've got to go out to the website to purchase the STC, and then you show up on Saturday between 9 and 6 p.m. at the Reid-Hillview Airport with your 337 form and other paperwork. So just to be clear, for aircraft that are based at Reid-Hillview and E16, they're getting a free STC if they do all of this within the next day or so. They're not getting free gasoline if they haven't already purchased an STC.
That is correct. For those that are participating and just now buying the STC, it's just a free STC.
Got it. Okay. And then for folks who've based at the same airports, Reid-Hillview and E16, if they've previously purchased the STC and gone through the process of working with an IA to get that signed off, they're getting a credit for 50 gallons of free gas.
Correct.
So let's talk about the broader set of pilots who live in the San Francisco Bay Area. My understanding is that the free fuel that's available to them this weekend is going to only be available to pilots that are based at certain airports. Can you give us the list of airports for those pilots?
So aircraft that are based at the following Bay Area airports who purchase an STC before midnight on November 1st are eligible to fly into Reid-Hillview and get 25 gallons of free G100UL. The airports are San Jose, Palo Alto, Livermore, San Carlos, Watsonville, Hayward, Tracy, Hollister, and Oakland. So that's 9 of the Bay Area airports.
That's great. Okay, so we've got 3 offers that will save pilots money in doing this conversion to G100UL. Tell us a little bit about the history. How is it that Reid-Hillview came to be the first airport in the nation to get G100UL?
Well, back in 2022, Santa Clara County took over all fueling operations at Reid-Hillview Airport. And concurrent with that, we also took over ownership of the fuel equipment, the fuel tank, I should say, at San Martin Airport. And those are the 2 airports that the county owns. About that time, the county also made the decision that it did not want to offer low lead fuel, that it did not want to offer any fuel that had lead in it. And so we made an effort to source an unleaded avgas. And the gas that we have, and we've sold a lot of it, is Swift's UL94, which is a 94-octane fuel. The 94-octane fuel works for a little more than 65% of the aircraft in the fleet. And we've been looking for an unleaded fuel that would satisfy the rest of the fleet, and it needed to be 100-octane. And so GAMI has been working on this for a long time. When they were working on it, I was communicating with them and said, we want it. I want to be one of the first. And as their STCs came out and they got the distribution figured out, we've gone through the contracting process. We're just the first ones to do it.
And I remember talking with George Brawley here on the show a couple of years ago, and he said that he definitely wanted to see the first fuel to be at the airports in California that were facing some challenges from local communities and politicians about the leaded fuels that were being used. Tell us a little bit about some of the challenges that you had in trying to get G100UL available on the field. I'm imagining this was not a simple, easy process.
Well, you're absolutely right. We're the first, and it's a first for getting this unleaded fuel out there. It's a first for the county going through this process. Some of the big challenges have just been going through the contracting process. So we're buying the fuel directly from the manufacturer, a company called Vitol, and so they've got their legal team, we've got our legal team, and it takes some time working together to come up with a purchase contract that is amenable to both sides. I'm happy that we finally have gotten there. There are also some challenges with distribution. The normal distribution channels were not available to us. The normal avgas distributors are not ready to distribute the fuel just yet, and that's part of the reason that we have contracted directly with Vitol for the purchase of the fuel. So lots of little things that have made it a challenge, but it looks like we've overcome most of those at this point.
So tell us, where was the fuel manufactured and how did it get to you?
It is manufactured right now in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, and it came out on a truck. I know that Vitol is working on rail car delivery. Our next load could come either via rail or via truck.
And I would imagine rail car shipment would reduce the overall cost of handling the fuel?
That's the expectation. We certainly saw that with Swift's fuel. When we first started getting it, it was via truck. And as they were able to move that to rail car, the transportation costs went down fairly substantially.
Well, so as long as we're talking about costs, can you tell us about the pricing of the fuel that you'll be selling now and over the weekend and for time to come?
Yeah, based on our current cost of purchasing the fuel, our G100UL, which is only available via truck delivery, is $6.99 a gallon.
And would you anticipate that possibly when you get lower transportation costs, that price could come down in the future?
That would be my expectation, but yes, let's just say that would be my expectation.
I understand, but anything is possible, so that's why you're probably hedging just a little bit there. Yeah. So I am sure there are other airport managers around the country who would love to get G100UL in their fields. What would you suggest to them? Any advice you have?
Well, you want to make sure you've got the assets in place. You know, if you wanted to add an additional storage tank, the lead times on that can be very substantial. We were very fortunate in that when we took over all the fuel assets at Reid-Hillview, we have 4 tanks. And so we're able to offer both UL94 and G100UL. Something else you've got to do is communicate with your local pilot base and make sure that they understand what's going on and that the new fuel requires an STC. It's not at this point, it's not a true drop-in replacement because you do have to have that STC and have it signed off by an IA to legally be able to fly with the fuel. If you do those things, you probably put yourself in a pretty good position.
And I'm curious, the incentives that are being offered over the upcoming weekend, are those partially funded by the airport and by GAMI, or how did that particular structure, these incentives come about?
This was all GAMI. This is their marketing effort to get the word out that the fuel is available and try and encourage adoption of it.
Basically to prime the pump, as it were.
Yes, the gas pump.
And what would be some of the compelling reasons for airport operators to switch to G100UL? What were some of the forces that drove Reid-Hillview to adopt it?
Well, at Reid-Hillview, or Santa Clara County, I should say, which owns Reid-Hillview Airport, the county conducted a study of blood lead levels of children. And that study showed that there is a correlation between the level of lead in a child's blood and their proximity to an airport. And that was the impetus that resulted in the county deciding not to offer leaded avgas. Now, we're the first in the nation, but we will not be the last. There are lots of other airports or other communities that are looking at this same issue. And I understand that there was a report done in Denver very recently that came to the same conclusion. The benefit of the unleaded gas, which is coming one way or the other, is that it does get that lead out of the environment. And the EPA has also chimed in, and they've got a ruling coming forth that is expected to put a sunset on the use of lead in avgas. And so it is coming. there's no point in putting it off because you're going to have to do it at some point. Better to get in front of the issue than drug into it later in the game.
Yeah, you raise a really good point, which is regardless of studies and all the other kinds of things, this is going to happen. Whether you agree with it or like it or disagree with it, doesn't matter. This is the future.
Yep.
All right, super. Any final thoughts you have today as we wrap up here?
Well, I am very excited that we have made it to this point. At the county now, we have 2 different unleaded fuels we can offer. We're very happy about that. I'm excited to see what happens with the sale of G100UL.
Well, congratulations to you. I know this is a momentous occasion. As an industry, we've been looking for this for literally decades, and you're right there on the point of the spear. Thanks for taking all the arrows to make this happen, and congratulations to you.
Thank you, Max. I really appreciate it.
And my thanks to Eric Peterson for joining us today. You can find out more about G100UL fuel at G100UL.com, and you can find links to register for the incentives we talked about today at aviationnewstalk.com/354. Now, if you've enjoyed the show and have any comments, you can email me by going to aviationnewstalk.com and clicking on Contact at the top of the page. And if you're getting value from this show, well, please support it by going to aviationnewstalk.com/support. And of course, please tell all of your friends about this show. So until next time, fly safely, have fun, and keep the blue side up. And remember that you can always go around.